Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and the Immortal Thor, issue number 1. Oh, that's right, baby. It's been a long time since I've had a physical comic book of a brand new comic book, same day as release, in my hands, hasn't it? But the way I look at it is, it's the Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing that, for the most part, got me out of comic books because it was so good that it made everything else pale horribly sometimes in comparison. That's how good the Immortal Hulk was. And then it was pretty easy for, I think, a lot of us to just kind of fall off of comic books after that. It's not necessarily, in some ways, because comics have gotten worse. In some ways, it's just nothing else was going to live up to the Immortal Hulk. And then the Immortal Al Ewing makes something new. This was so good. I'm actually looking forward to Immortal Captain America, Immortal Spider-Man, Immortal Fantastic Four. Hell, let's get really silly with it. Let's go with like Immortal Moon Knight, Immortal Daredevil, right? Immortal. There's already an Immortal Iron Fist, but we can make him more immortal, all right? We could 10x his immortality with Al Ewing, man. I'm saying let's get real funky with this, baby. Let's go out. Let's make like Immortal Howard the Duck. All right, let's go out and make like freaking Immortal Darkhawk, Immortal Sleepwalker. God damn it, I say we get Immortal NFL Pro, baby. Yeah, yeah. But we're going to sit down. We're going to calm down a little bit because people are sleeping in the house. Shh. And we're going to talk a little bit about who made this comic book. Then we're going to get into the book itself. So, All Weather Turns to Storm. Al Ewing is the writer. Martin Coccolo is, or Cocold? I think it's Coccolo. Does the art. Hey, it's the lettering, man. Matthew Wilson does the color art. VC's Joe Sabino does the letter. It's his fault I can't read Martin's name. And Alex Ross did this cover. There's a lot of variant covers out there, man. Jonathan Hickman did the G.O.D.S page, which I think is pretty interesting. If you look at the first, the cover, if you look at the cover right on the bottom where it says Marvel issue number 1, the thing next to John Romita, rest in peace, baby. You got it down here, it says G.O.D.S. It's very interesting. Who are the G.O.D.S? And it's like an acronym. It's G.O.D.S. Right? So it's actually supposed to mean something. I'm interested. You got me interested. In the very last page in here, it's like an after credit scene. There's one page with Tyr. That's the god of war. Later on known as the god of courage and bravery because he couldn't really go to war anymore. He got his hand bit off by the Fenris wolf. It's supposed to be the right hand. I forget if the comic books made it his left hand, but this comic book makes it his left hand. And he just gets inside of a box. I don't know, is this going to be like that fourth Highlander movie, which was pretty good, but also pretty weird? I don't know. Anyway, so, hey, all credit for Thor goes to Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and Jack Kirby. The letters page at the end of this, man, had me real freaking happy. Had me super happy. But let's get into this book itself. He is sated with the last breath of dying men. The god's seat he with red gore defiles. Every time you see the word gore, it starts to make you think of Aaron's Run, right? Swart is the sunshine then, for summer's after. All weather turns to storm. Understand ye yet, or what? The elder Eddas of Saemund Sigfusson. Anyway, the elder Eddas, as opposed to the prose Eddas. This is interesting because we see another version of, well, I'm not going to completely spoil this book, but we see somebody. And he's talking about the wheel. The wheel turns. And at the end, this guy shows up. Like, he straight up shows up. And he's ready to kick some booty and take some namies. And it's interesting. Because he's talking about the wheel. And he actually has a wheel in his hand. It looks like he actually ripped this big wooden wagon wheel off of a wagon. It's like broken. It's jacked up and everything, right? It would be like the messed up spare tire that you got to change. Rim and everything. And it's interesting because I'm wondering if this isn't Ewing's Thor version of the Green Door. Every great story needs that forbidden door of sorts, right? Anyway, so we see a version of Utgard Loki. I thought this was actually pretty cool at first, and then he got killed. But it was also the idea that he's going to come back because that's just what he does. He's an illusion thing. This harkens back to an actual Norse myth that I read when I was a kid. Um, so Thor and Loki went down on the goats, what the frick, Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder. They went down to Earth, and they went down to a frozen land because that's what all of Earth was for the most part. And he saw this human family, guy and a girl and a mom and a dad. They went down there and like, oh hey, it's cool, hey, let's have a feast. I'll slaughter my goats and just I'll heal them on the next day. He didn't explain to the mortals because it's not a mortal's job to understand these things. But the one kid did what he was not supposed to do. You're not supposed to break the bones of the meat, right? But this kid didn't think anything of it, and he broke the bone and to suck the marrow out. Marrow's where all the flavor is, baby. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, um, think of it like bouillon in a bone. So when Thor reforms the goats, one of them actually has a limp now because that bone was broken, and Thor's pissed off. He says, "You disobeyed me. I fed you. I did all this cool stuff, and you disobeyed me." And he's like, "I'm going to take you as a slave." So usually the time of being a slave for all generations was like 7 years or so. But either way, it's the idea that, instead of killing you and taking away your family, you can know that your son will be safe, but he's going to be my slave. He's going to be my servant from now on. So it is what it is. And what happens? So they go off to, it's not really the Utgard land, but you might as well call it that because they go to this place and all these illusions are happening and they don't realize that they're illusions until later. And Thor gets tested heavily. Loki gets tested. Everybody gets tested, right? The kids got to try and outrun time, right? Which nobody can outlast, not even the gods, right? Loki has to eat, and he doesn't realize that this person he's eating against is actually the embodiment of fire, which consumes all. So while Loki would eat all the meat off of the bones, this other person would actually eat the bones also, which is what fire does. It's all consuming. And Thor did several things also, including lifting a cat that was actually a disguised version of the Midgard serpent. And if the Midgard serpent's tail comes out of its mouth, then the earth ends. And it was just a really, and it almost happened right there. Ragnarok almost happened right there on the spot and freaked everybody out at Thor's power, but he still failed the test. Another test was to drink out of this horn, but it turns out that the bottom of the horn, he couldn't see it, was connected to the sea. And it's the reason why the tide went down so low at one point, because Thor was drinking directly from the sea. And he's like, I can't finish this goblet. I don't get it. Well, it was connected to the ocean. So there were a lot of things just to try and, it's like you did amazingly, but you failed the test because you didn't understand the illusion. I imagine with Ewing's great imagination in and of itself, I think he's going to do something similar to this. The trick is not to beat this thing or that thing, but to see what these things truly mean. The Vikings, believe it or not, were extremely wise, sagely people, right? Yes, there was the barbarians and blah, 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 but amongst them, they had the true sages, right? Think about what it means to tie up the Fenris wolf, which is part of the story of Tyr and how he got his hand bit off. They made a string, like the strongest metals and chains wouldn't hold this thing, so they made a small string made out of things that don't exist, like the breath of a fish and the beard of a woman and so on and so forth. Very interesting stuff, right? Illusion, allegory, things like that. One of the things that was interesting is that Loki is now, I don't know, a trans person, basically. It's a he and a she, right? A god and a goddess. And the god and goddess of stories, which is interesting because what are stories if not elaborate lies that are pleasing to the ear? Hopefully, unless your stories suck, in which case you need a better editor. Al Ewing doesn't have that problem. So I love that because Loki is actually the god of mischief, the god of lies. So that was actually very interesting. Ewing just basically took a different approach. It's like rather than look at the glass half full, let's look at it as half empty, right? Or the inverse, however you need to see the damn glass, all right, and the liquid inside of it. So I love what they do here. Loki is actually called they. This is kind of important. I know four trans people. One of them actually worships Loki, right? Like actually worships and prays to Loki. Why? And I called it, and they commented that so on and so forth. Um, Loki at one point turned into a mare, a female horse, to try and get a war horse, a stallion, male horse, away from helping this one giant to build the walls of Asgard. Because if the walls were built by a certain time, well, then they were going to have to give Freya, one of the gods, technically one of the Aesir. No, excuse me, one of the Vanir, not the Aesir, but still one of their own. To this giant didn't want to do that, and the horse is the one that was really helping him to do that. So Loki tricked the horse to come away by flirting as a female horse. Well, the horse apparently caught up with Loki because Loki got pregnant and had Sleipnir, which the eight-legged horse, which eventually became Odin's horse, Sleipnir, right? So Loki actually gave birth at one point because he can be a male or a female. Now, in the actual Norse mythos, Loki was extremely embarrassed by this, and the gods made fun of him for a long time. It's speculated that's one of the reasons why he became so mischievous and evil is because of the way they would heckle him over this. So I mean, it is what it is. But anyway, here, I like the idea that they're actually making it like this. If it's going to make some people happy, and it doesn't necessarily go against anything that I believe as far as Loki is, because these gods, these characters are different from like Bullfinch's mythology. If anybody remembers Bullfinch back in the day, that guy went out of business. But there's still several other people who make books on mythology. I really love that. So I like the idea, and I love the idea that Loki's actually drawn like you can't tell if it's a male or a female. He's confusing to look at, right? Very feminine face, very masculine arms and hands, right? I was genuinely confused looking at this character like this is so freaking weird to look at. It's meant to be that way. So really freaking good job on the part of the creative team here. I really dig that they did that. As far as the story itself, Thor shows up in his old costume. That right there is the biggest signifier that they're going to kind of rein Thor in at this point. Loki wound up doing this was incredible. He had a staff by the elders of the universe that had these powers to do whatever you wanted. And it was, you look at the spelling, but then you try and sound it out. It's the whatever stick. It's called the staff of whatever, right? I love that because it's a lie. It's a lie. I've talked about Loki's real powers before and the way that he actually uses powers of suggestion. In many regards, all he's doing is telling you a very believable story, and he's implanting the suggestion in your brain. I love that this is the power that Loki does. He can take the belief of others. And if you can make a god believe you, then you've got a godly belief right here. I mean, mortals believe in gods and gods exist. What if a god believes in something? Imagine that. I do, and apparently Al Ewing does also. That's what I gather from this. Loki can convince you of something through a story and then make the thing manifest. He makes the stick able to, one time only, recreate the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. And Sif says, ooh, stronger than ever. I can't wait till Sif is gone and Heimdall is back. And I'm saying, needs to be white, unless you're going to make Sif black for some reason. But this nonsense needs to stop, all right? I love the idea they brought the Bifrost back, because this is it. Odin is still in Valhalla. I look forward to him coming back at some point, right? Thor's hammer doesn't have cracks all in it anymore. Thor is going back to Midgard, to Earth, and hanging out, and he's partying. He's drinking soda instead of beers, which I think is weird. But whatever, man. I get it. I get it. He's probably got his chip. You know what I'm saying? It's 1 month sobriety or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm digging this. Like, really, in my heart, I am digging this, right? There's certain things that I kind of have some flawish ideas of, but it's the first issue. So I'm good with it. His page in the back, in lieu of a letters page, since this is so early, genuinely heartwarming. And guys, I know some of you guys get sick of me talking about Shooter, but he talks about Shooter in this. He talks about Walter Simonson's run on Thor. He just told us the two things that are going to influence him most on this run. And if I didn't already love what he was doing, that only cinched it for me. You're telling me your influences align with my own. Good, baby. So this was a really, really solid, good comic. Guys, I went out and I bought a physical copy of a comic book. That's awesome. Guys, several really quick announcements. I'm going to be at Fan Expo starting tomorrow. Actually, today. It's exactly midnight, Thursday morning right now. So you'll find me walking around on Thursday, today. You'll find me walking around Fan Expo in Canada. So come by, say hi. I will be in two places. Shooter's going to be there, so I'm going to be visiting the hell out of Shooter. Also, my friend Trevor is going to be there. Trevor does the Helix Project. All right. I highly recommend. This is an exclusive for his Fan Expo Canada. I got the first copy. I don't even think he kept one for himself. But boom, he gave me, this is the third printing of the first copy of the book. This is awesome. He's going to be there. I'm going to be hanging out with him. If I am going to be there for the rest of the weekend, a good portion of the time we'll just be sitting down, hanging out with him and talking. So you want to come over and see him and check out his comic book, you come on over and see me also. And hell, maybe I'll even talk to you a little bit about my book, my Kickstarter book, Puzzles and Perils, a book of riddles for fantasy RPGs. This is my Kickstarter. It's going to start on September 1st. There's going to be an early bird thing that first week, an offer that is not going to be available for the following 3 weeks. All right. It's a Kickstarter, 5e, like Dungeons & Dragons 5e compatible, 300 and more. So there's more than 300 riddles in the book. How I made the riddles, how I make riddles, how you can make riddles, my influencers riddles, how you put riddles in your campaign, the different kinds of riddles, and what you can do with the riddles. This is what's going to up your game to the next level. I absolutely promise you, it is that thing that makes the players go, holy crap, this was a good game. This is the thing that they remember. I failed the riddle. Oh, dude, you got the riddle. Whoa. This is the most memorable thing about pretty much any game you're going to do, because rolling funny shaped dice to kill things, any moron can do that. But putting together a clever riddle in the perfect place to really trip up the players, something that you can't, or you shouldn't at least, just roll the dice to figure out. No. And there are very good consequences if you fail these riddles. And I'll explain all of that stuff also in the book. Guys, might be running a couple of play tests with these. I might be running a couple of one-shots coming up pretty soon, because of, to get you guys to understand like the things that you can do with all these riddles. And heck, if you like riddles, just read the riddle. Just buy the book to read the riddles, because for crying out loud, you can read the riddles, guess at them. The answer's all the way in the back of the book. Anyway, guys, love you all. Thank you very much. Like the video, watch an ad, and I hope to see you at Fan Expo Canada. All right? Take care. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.